And we've been building it for about a year. And what it is a framework for people that love the Jamstack philosophy, but need a database. There's a couple of things I just want to point out. If you want any stickers, just please go fill it in the form on this page and we'll ship them anywhere in the world. And if you ever need any help, just come to our community. We have quite an active community. Oh, it says discourse, but it's actually Discord.
And what it is
right. So Redwood is built with Redwood brings full stack to the Jamstack. And if you don't know what the Jamstack stands for, it's JavaScript APIs and Markup. It's not about specific technologies, but rather a way of building websites that don't depend on a web server. And Redwood is an opinionated framework built with GraphQL, React, and Prisma. Prisma is an open source database toolkit.
There's a small echo right now.
Redwood brings full stack to the Jamstack. And so could you say that again?
I'm hearing an echo on my end.
It's not about specific technologies, but rather a way of building websites. Everyone muted? And Redwood is an opinionated framework built with GraphQL, React, and Prisma. Prisma is an open source database toolkit.
There's a small echo right now.
Weird. All right, just let me know if you hear the echo again. Are you still hearing the echo?
I'm hearing an echo on my end. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, so we're building it with GraphQL, React, and Prisma. Prisma is an open source database toolkit that provides query builder and migrations. And they'll be offering a whole bunch of other things later. Prisma 2 is not ready. It's in beta, and therefore Redwood is not ready. It's also currently under heavy construction. So just keep that in mind. So a lot of people might ask us why we started building a framework. And the reason why we did that was because we were frustrated with the existing options in the world. And it's not that there were a lack of options, it's almost that there were too many options. And what we saw was a lack of integration. So what we wanted to do was make the easy things easy and the hard things possible. Another way to look at that is that we want to give you something that is what you want, but you can change it if you can. So I'm going to show off a little bit of Redwood, and what I've done is I've checked out the example to-do app from our RedwoodJS organization. I'm going to show off the directory structure real quick. So what you get when you, in any typical RedwoodJS app, is an API folder and a web folder. And these are Yarn workspaces. So they are separated, but they're in a monorepo structure. In the API, you have Prisma and a schema or Prisma file. This is where you define the models in your database. And you can use our CLI command to migrate your database up and down, to generate a database client through Prisma's tooling. There's also SRC directory, which gives you a functions folder with GraphQL. And what that means is if you run yarn redwood dev API, it will start up a Express server, which I'm already running. Just kill that. And I'm going to go to this window. So it will start up an Express server that's running on port 8911, and the web server, which is Webpack Dev server, which is running on port 8910. So what's happening here is we have this Express server with the GraphQL function, which is described in this folder. And this ties together the GraphQL schema and the GraphQL services. I'll go into that a little in depth soon. So what we have here is a GraphQL playground where you can query everything that you're building. But for all intents and purposes, you probably will be building your front end first, and well, you will be building your front end mostly, and you'll be working through port 8910. So I can add a whole bunch of to-do items here. I etc. And that is chatting over the wire to our GraphQL server and creating a mutation. And when I reload the page, it fetches them. So I want to show off some of the tooling that we have around the developer experience for creating pages, routes, and tying this all together. So we have a command line interface called RW or Redwood, and we have some generators. You can either type generate or G, and I want to generate a page. I'll call it cat names, and I'll give it a path, cat names. So what that just did, hopefully, did not do the thing I wanted it to do. There we go. We need to fix that. So it generated page for us, which is just this placeholder, and I can actually go there now. It's a bit small, sorry. And it linked it in our routes file. So you'll see here, we have the path cat names, and we have this cat names page. You'll notice something that this import doesn't actually exist. We have a Webpack plugin that will automatically import things from the pages folder that end in page. So here you can see a test, and here you can see this cat name page. Cat names. This isn't very interesting. One of the things that we probably would like to do is fetch data from our API side. So I'm going to create a new GraphQL schema that will query. I'm going to call it cats. And then let me just do this. Query cat names. What do we want it to be? Type string. Okay. So I've created a schema. If I go to 8.9.11 and go to GraphQL, we'll probably see it in here. We see it there, but it doesn't have a resolver. So we can export a resolver in this file. Let's just copy this. Okay, so I'm exporting some cat names. And if I query that, I get the result returned, these three things. What I'd like to do is get this data onto the website, and I'd like to introduce a concept called cells. So a cell is something that we have named for a declarative way of fetching stuff over the wire or fetching GraphQL things. We have a generator for that as well. So let me create a cell, cat names, and it's over here. So you'll see it has a query. It has this stub filled in here, which isn't very helpful. I don't want that. What I want is cat names. It has loading, empty, and a failure. So usually when you're writing a GraphQL query using Apollo or any other library, you'll have to deal with these states. You'll say, oh, are you loading? Now show this thing. Or have you failed? Show this thing. Or do you actually have all the data that I expect and show the success thing? So what we've done is you can just export these things. You can export loading or failure or success, and then you can deal with those in a declarative way. I just want to get the success part working real quick. I'm going to import it into my page. That's a test. Oh, geez. Okay. Okay, so you can see the cell is hitting the success part of the query, and it's returning hello, which isn't what we want. We actually want the cat names themselves. So there is it returns a data object here, and it spreads it out. So actually, there will just be something here called cat names, and I can return that cat names. And then you can see them there. So there's some nice things that we can do. We can massage the data before it reaches the success function. Using something called before query, after query. There is before query where you can massage it before it gets sent to the query. And here you get a data object. And inside the data object, we have cat names. So what I'm going to do is modify these and just join them like I'm doing there on the bottom. Oops. And then I don't have to do that. Oh, what am I doing wrong? Okay, that's how that works. So we also have the loading state, which I'd like to show off, and I'm just gonna switch this to 3G and reload it. And then you'll see the loading state display first, and you'll see the success, and if there's an error, you'd see the error state. So this is how we think about doing GraphQL queries in Redwood. We have this GraphQL schema definition file where you can create resolvers and define your schema. Then we have the cell, which goes and fetches queries that field. But this is also kind of not that great because we have the resolvers and the schema in a single place. And if you have a large bit of, if you have a large schema definition for some particular concept, it's just gonna grow really large. So we have another thing called services, and services is how we like to think of the separation between your schema and your business logic or your database. So I'm going to create, I'm going to separate these out real quick. And how these work is you just export a resolver of the same name. So if I exported cat names as a function, it would merge in the resolvers, and that would work. Oh, still on slow 3G here. So what's happening here is we have this GraphQL server. It's taking our schema and our services. The schema is defined here, and the resolvers are defined here. And you're able to split your logic up pretty decently. I want to show you an existing schema, though. I'm all over the place. I apologize. For this to-do app, so here we have a to-do type. We have this to-do's query, and this is going to query the database. So here we have the resolvers for the schema here. And you can see here is the resolver, and it fetches all the things in the database. There's a mutation called update to-do status, which is associated over here. Update to-do status, it has an input type, and this all just works like this. There might be a point when you do not want to only do GraphQL and you want to deploy a different kind of Lambda function. So we also offer support for that. And in the functions directory, you can just create a new JS or TS file, and go to 8911. You won't see it here because it doesn't export anything. But if you export a handler, it'll show up. We support both asynchronous and callback AWS lambdas. This isn't picking it up for some reason. I've got a problem here. Oh. Okay. Syntax error. All right, so we picked up the second lambda that we created. And you actually have to return an object. Which has a body and a status code, and you can do headers and that kind of stuff in here. And that's how you would create a second lambda, and you can deploy these to Netlify, and they'll show up in Netlify, as well as be proxied through your Webpack server. One of the things that I didn't touch on was the router with this routes file. The imports are automatically handled for you, but what's also great about the automatically handled imports is that they split the code chunks. So every page is an asynchronous import automatically. You can opt out of that by importing it yourself, but you have asynchronous imports by default. So Patrick, that's actually everything that I wanted to show in Redwood today.
Okay, thanks. So let me see if you have any questions. Yeah. So someone is asking, is there first class for TypeScript support? And for example,
I can't hear you, Patrick. I'm sorry.
Oh. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
There? I can hear you now.
Okay.
Weird. What, was I muted?
Maybe. So there is a question. Someone is asking, is there first class support for TypeScript?
It's on its way. We are very close to having that done. A lot of it will work, but it's not there yet. It's a priority for us though, and we're looking for contributors.
And someone's asking if you have like auto-generated type for the data in the cell.
Yeah, we do have that. So you could create a database model and you can auto-generate a type for that. I'll show you quickly how that works. So here is our, just close all these up. So here's our model called to-do.
I think you need to share your screen again.
Ah, yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So in our API folder in Prisma, we have the schema definition for your data model, and we have this to-do model. You can automatically generate a service, a GraphQL type definition for that using our generators. So we already have some written here by Tom, and he wrote them before we have the generators. So I'm just going to delete those real quick. Yeah, delete both of them. And we have the services. Just going to take those out. And I'm going to generate these now. So yard Redwood G SDL. You give it the model, and then it will generate it. So it's inspected the model that you've defined, and it's created the. Oh, hold on one second. So these are the resolvers. So we have some CRUD operations over here, and here's the SDL that it's created over here. So you'll see it. Let's just get these side by side.
Mm-hmm.
So it inspected the model and it created some CRUD-related GraphQL fields and types for this model. And we also were able to create the resolvers for those, some CRUD operations.
Okay. And how about deploying functions? Do they get deployed to Lambda automatically to AWS or Netlify, or how does that work exactly?
Yeah, they do. So each folder has a build step. API has a build step, and so does web. And when you build them, it runs through Babel, and they get uploaded to Netlify's infrastructure. So each one of these will be available on .netlify/functions/hello or GraphQL.js.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And can you switch to other providers of functions, or?
It's in the works. Right now, we focused on Netlify because it was the easiest target for us.
Yeah.
But other providers are definitely something that we want to fold in. We also have the concept of side. So right now we give you an API side and a web side, but we'd love to add like a React Native side or an Electron side, all with the configuration, all with the correct kind of configurations to make this kind of thing possible. Or if you wanted two webs or two APIs for whatever reason, that's possible. Or we're busy making that possible.
Cool. And do you plan to have some kind of authentication baked in, or is that up to the user?
We're actually working on authentication right now, and we want to support Auth0 and Netlify Identity, and make it so that you can switch between them and add new ones and have a database level authentication as well, and role-based access control. We have a contributor, his name's Chris, and he's been really instrumental in driving that forward. But it's very important to us as well.
Okay, that's cool. Well, let me check if we have more questions. No, it looks like that's it. So, how long have you been working on the project for?
It's actually been in the making for about a year. And I had a link here, but I don't think I mentioned it. There's this JS Party podcast that Tom was on, where he actually spoke a bit more about Redwood and how it came to be and how we think about it. And he's much more eloquent than I am in these sorts of things. So if you ever want to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, this is a great place to hear it. But we've been working on it for about a year, and in the last 6 months, very seriously. But the idea has been in our heads since maybe a year and a half. It's been a fun journey.
Yeah, because there isn't really any Rails-like framework for Node.js, so it's good to see this.
Yeah, and I think Tom has been saying like maybe we won't be the one, but it's nice to start the conversation. We hope that we're the one at the end that brings Rails-like thinking to a framework in the JavaScript ecosystem. But we're just happy to be part of this and happy to try and make it happen.
Okay. Well, thank you, Peter, and thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as it helps us get more subscribers and more content. So, is there anything else you would like to add, Peter?
Yeah, I think if you're interested in contributing, or anyone's interested in contributing to RedwoodJS, I would really appreciate that. We're super friendly, and there's a lot of work. So if you want to learn how to build a framework, which is a very interesting technical challenge, come on over and help us.
Okay. How many people are working on it right now?
There are sort of 3 people that work on it, that are focused on working on it, but we have been getting a ton of contributions lately.
Okay. Oh, someone is asking, can you show us some project which use Redwood? And yeah, I guess it's a bit early for this, but are there already projects in production?
No, I don't think there are, and I don't think there should be. We're in flux, and that would be a bad idea. But if you want to see some examples, we have 3 of them: example blog, invoice, and even though blog is not the best example, it is easily understood by a bunch of people. And the one that I just showed you example to do, but there are no apps in production. Yeah, not yet, at least.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Peter, and thanks everyone for watching, and see you next week, I think.
Perfect.
All right.
Have a great Easter.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too.